listening to Insert AI Generated Title, a podcast about artificial intelligence and how it impacts our lives, produced by the California Center for Ethics and Policy, or CCEP, at Cal Poly Pomona. My name is Tiffany Ju. I'm an assistant professor of global ethics and technology at Old Dominion University, a faculty fellow with CCEP, and your host. In the spring of 2025, our student fellows explored the ethical and policy issues arising from the rapid development of AI, including privacy, fairness, and bias, as well as larger questions of truth and our very perception of reality. How can we use and design AI in responsible ways? When, if ever, should we trust it? In this season's episodes, students will draw from our seminar discussions and their own lived experiences to explore how AI is affecting education, creativity, scientific inquiry, and human relationships. In today's episode, the impact of AI in the programming and computer science landscape, CCEP student fellow Mark Haddad brings to light how AI is impacting current and prospective software engineers, both in terms of their job prospects and career pathways, as well as how it changes the way they code. For insight on this topic, he interviews Dr. John Korrah, assistant professor of computer science at Cal Poly Pomona. In doing so, they discuss the concept of vibe coding and provide concrete advice to computer science students struggling amidst these changes in the field.
Hello everyone, my name is Mark, and today I'm going to be talking about the involvement and impact of AI within the programming and computer science landscape. So, as a computer science student that's graduating very soon, there's an overwhelming and daunting feeling that comes with trying to enter the workforce at this stage of the tech industry. AI is changing a lot of how computer science students and software engineers function. It's changing the demand of those software engineers, and it has already fundamentally changed the role of a software engineer within the span of my undergraduate career. So out of my own curiosity to find answers, this episode will share how AI has impacted this space, and we'll have important discussions with a professor and a student to understand what we can do to best navigate ourselves during this trying time. More importantly, what students can do to retain the value of their skills as a CS student and not fall victim to following the wrong trends. We'll go into depth on topics such as vibe coding, over-reliance on AI, 10x developers, shaping what the role and workflow of software engineers will look like, and finally the best practices to take away to survive and succeed in this time of rapid change. Whether you're a computer science student, a new grad looking for a job, or you're already working in the industry. Stay tuned. Thank you. Within my undergraduate career, I went from having barely any coding experience and hardly understanding what AI is, to the stark realization that AI will become an inevitable part of all of our lives, especially for CS students like myself. The first time I discovered that ChatGPT could write code, I was simply blown away. I asked it to write a small Python program for rock, paper, scissors, and even back then with the free version of ChatGPT 3.0, I ultimately had the feeling of fear. With such a relatively simple task being done so well, I just couldn't believe it. Now, as I'm in the last month of my degree, so much more has come out and AI has become exponentially better. Cutting-edge models from big companies and startups have specialized skills in programming and reasoning. Innovative integration of code and tools like Cursor AI have accelerated and streamlined how AI is used in the programming workflow. So much is coming out so quickly, and with that, the overall trend to use them has changed so much, and CS students operate day-to-day using AI much more. I myself find that I almost need AI to do anything now. I can hardly do anything impressive without it. What should I do? Am I cooked? It turns out I'm definitely not alone with these worries, so this is what I want to explore. And as I gather opinions of the internet and of a professor and student here at Cal Poly Pomona, I'm hoping to leave you with concrete advice on what computer science students and software engineers should do to retain their value in their studies and profession. I first want to introduce you to an interview that I had with my professor and research advisor, Dr. John Korrah. I asked Dr. Korrah questions related to general advice to computer science students on this changing landscape with AI, what he thinks of things like vibe coding and what CS students should focus on during this time. I hope you enjoy. Okay, thank you, Dr. Korrah, for joining me. So the first question I have for you is, what is your general advice to CS students currently that are navigating through the changing landscape of utilizing AI in the software industry and CS curriculums? Do you think that there's things to value more now, such as still valuing how to code, or things like higher level prompt engineering or other certain skills? What do you think?
Right, so great. So Mark, it's great to be here with you. So I think that with this changing landscape in software engineering with respect to introduction of new AI technology, specifically large language models, I think is going to change the way in which we are going to do software engineering. However, with respect to your questions, do we still need to learn programming? The answer is a resounding yes. So you have to be very good programmers. What's changed, or what may be changing in the future, is that you may not be working a lot with the raw code or building a code from the bottom up. Obviously, there's going to be some tools that you're going to use which will help you build some of that initial code. But you have to first you have to understand the entire design, because you'll be the designer and the architect for the code. And the way I'm seeing is that the software engineering or the architect is going to guide the AI tool to get to the final product. And so you have to be a good programmer in order to understand whether your code is working well. You have to test the code yourself and so on. What I'm hearing from my colleagues in the industry is that AI is not going to replace software engineers. What it probably is going to help do is that it will increase the productivity of each individual software engineer. So the sizes of the software team may go down. Maybe you could do a lot more with a smaller number of team members, but there's still not again going to be a big role for the humans in with respect to building the software system and so on.
Yeah. I guess just going off for the job market and things like that, do you think there's some sort of bottleneck where the level of entry or for entry-level software engineers has just significantly risen, the number of people that are in demand for any given industry or any given company? It's just a lot harder, I'd say, to get a job now. So I also liked the advice that you gave towards the end of last semester in the data mining class. I guess just tying stuff like that in, what do you think someone like me who's just graduating, focusing in CS and data science, what can we do to stand out and still try to put our foot in the door to get into the industry?
Okay, so I think the first part of your question with respect to what's happening with the job market, there's not a lot of entry positions, or it's very hard to get into entry position. And the answer is because you are in a transition state, where unfortunately there has been some economic reasons why there is not a lot, or where it's harder to get into position. That's because of the way that that the industry has been hiring really large numbers of people during COVID, and now they are kind of becoming more leaner, and because of that you see that issue with the jobs. But I see this as a transitionary thing. I don't think this is going to be something that you'll see, that will continue to last. And the reason is because as they figure out how AI can be impactful, right? So it's going to seep into all these different sectors, legal, medical, all these different areas where you'll have new applications being developed using AI. And in order to develop these applications, people talk about AI coding itself. I mean, I'm not sure how much of that is true or if it's just hype, but I definitely see a lot of need for humans, software engineers, to help make that transition to all these different sectors to build those applications. At the very least, you need a lot of what we call software trainers in order to build that training data set in order to train those applications, right?
Right.
And so there's going to be a lot of opportunities for that. So and coming back to what I said at the end of the data mining course is that so students who are coming out of computer science, earlier there's been a lot of focus on programming because you were the only humans were the only software generators at that time. But now with the AI into the play, what I have been suggesting students is that understand the foundations of AI with respect to the math and the statistics behind it. And I think getting better with the statistics, with the foundational knowledge, is much more important right now, because I don't think you can just be a programmer and be able to be doing interesting work here, right?
Yeah.
So you need to understand what's going on within the hood, and then how to refine your AI models based on what you're seeing, right? And so for that, you have to develop, you need to have very strong foundational knowledge. So take courses in data science, which is basically statistics, big data, some of these math courses, and then build your skill set based on that.
Yeah, that's great advice. The last thing I was going to ask you is if you've heard of the term vibe coding.
Yes.
You mentioned, just AI programming, and
Yeah.
you already summed it up pretty well, but so yeah, like, do you have an opinion on that some people that have no programming or CS knowledge whatsoever are
Yes.
building full-scale apps, things like
Okay.
that. Granted, not as high quality,
Yes.
but it's sort of just become like a big trend now. I'm vibe coding this, I deployed it over a weekend.
Yeah.
What do you think of all of that, or do you think that sort of methodology will last, and the people that do have a technical background will stand out?
Okay, so the vibe coding, the way I see it, is helping individuals who don't have a background in computing get into this area, right? Or at least start building applications which they wouldn't be able to do before. So it is removing some of those barriers in that case. Okay, that definitely. But the one term that you use, quality of code, right? I think that is going to be the defining factor here, or the distinguishing factor behind people who know coding, people who have a background in computing versus people who don't have a background in computing who do vibe coding, right? So there's going to be a big difference in the quality of code that is going to be generated between these two individuals, even though both of them would be using vibe coding, and so or tools, LLM based tools, and so so for simple applications, maybe vibe coding is going to make an impact, but for really complicated software products, I don't think it is. I don't think individuals who don't have a background would be able to just use vibe coding in order to set that up. Okay, because there's a lot going on in those systems, which if you don't understand that properly, and some of these software systems are pretty critical, right? And so if it goes down, you're basically looking at maybe things like your grid falling apart and things like that. The electric grid. And so I don't think anybody is going to have people who don't have a computing background build applications for such critical systems. So maybe they'll be able to build a really cool website or a server system like that, but I don't see. I mean, everything is my opinion at this point. I don't see them building something critical. And maybe you could use individuals could use vibe coding to get a foot into the door, but also understand more about computing. So they would still need to build their background, I feel, if they need to do interesting work.
All right, well, that concludes that. Well, thank you so much for all of your input.
All right, okay, great, Mark. It was great to talk to you.
Yeah. So there's some key insights that I can take away from my conversation with Dr. Korrah. I found it super helpful, and I think it gives a good perspective on what we can do as CS students to prepare ourselves for a long and successful career as valuable employees. The first is that for any general worries that I myself or you may have had about the value of a CS degree or the value of CS as a field of study, I think overall that it can be mitigated. There's so much hype around AI and what it can do and how much it can really automate the role of a software engineer. But overall, those that are equipped with a technical background are much more equipped to handle complex programming and software engineering tasks. I do believe that vibe coders can only do so much, and yes, like Dr. Korrah said, most likely they can be able to deploy quick and relatively small-scale applications. However, if you are applied to critical operations, super complex tasks in your job, you definitely need that technical background. And as Dr. Korrah said, especially for people that are into data science and machine learning, learning the fundamentals are crucial. Things like statistics and the math behind machine learning are crucial to know, especially as an expert. And I'd argue that, if you are not into data science and machine learning, and you want to apply yourself in another area of software engineering, learning other skills in line with a specific industry application of computer science is also super valuable too, such as having a biology background and a statistics background for something like using bioinformatics and software engineering in a biotech industry, or something like electrical engineering or computer engineering, where you have a background in hardware and software, so you can go into things like robotics and space technology. Stuff like this and diversifying your skill set is also super valuable. For myself, I am definitely interested in robotics, data science, machine learning, so I want to build a foundation on top of just pure programming skills that is very solid in mathematics, statistics, knowledge of hardware, debugging, hardware-related issues, debugging, complex system design tasks, cloud computing. There's so much more beyond just the pure programming, and I think that is really what will make us stand out. And to all the new grads out there trying to get their foot in the door, I hope the message realizing that we are in a transition period and in a genuinely tough time in terms of demand, that brings some hope and compassion towards one another. Over time, as AI integration in society and workplaces smoothens out, and as more things are being made with AI, we will find our footing. We just have to prepare ourselves correctly for that when the time comes, and listening to people like Dr. Korrah and his advice can really help prepare us for that. With all this in mind, I'd like to introduce another conversation that I had with my friend and fellow CS student Omar, in which I asked him questions about over-reliance on AI and what he thinks of vibe coding. I hope you enjoy this too. All right, Omar, thanks for joining. Well, first question I have for you is, as a CS student, do you feel like you rely too much on AI? And if so, have you felt like your understanding of programming skills has diminished?
Okay, so as a computer science student, I do feel as if I rely on artificial intelligence a lot. I remember my freshman year, artificial intelligence wasn't really popular, so I wouldn't use it a lot. And I did feel as if I learned a lot more from actually paying attention in classes, figuring out code using the internet instead of artificial intelligence. And now that I've used AI, I feel as if my coding skills has diminished a little bit, just because I don't have to really look into programming languages or concepts as much, because artificial intelligence can summarize it for you or just give you the answer directly. And I feel like that has diminished my coding skills a bit. However, I also feel as if artificial intelligence has helped me as a computer science student, because instead of having to spend hours reading through docs or documentation on languages or frameworks, the answer is just given to me directly, and I'm able to save time when programming.
Awesome, yeah, thanks for the answer. The other question I want to ask is, have you heard of vibe coding and what do you think of it? Like the kind of people that have no technical background, but they're able to deploy, full-scale applications in like a weekend, and they just kind of roll with whatever the AI lets them do for them. Do you think that people with a technical background still have an advantage using AI, or do you think that AI will be too powerful enough for people without a technical background to be able to, stay in the software game, basically?
Okay, so I believe that people who have a technical background with programming still have an advantage over users who vibe code without any technical background, just because I know from first-hand experience, I've worked with languages that I have not known before anything about, and it's very hard for someone who doesn't have a technical background with programming to use artificial intelligence to build these programs, just because artificial intelligence doesn't always get everything right. It makes a lot of mistakes, and I've had to let artificial intelligence know the mistakes that it has done, and sometimes it can't even find a fix for what it has given you. So I still believe that people who have a background in programming have an advantage in vibe coding with artificial intelligence. I also do believe that vibe coding is gonna be one of I feel like the industry is leaning more towards vibe coding, and this is because I believe that artificial intelligence is good enough for someone with a technical background to understand what it is giving you and make changes based on the code it is given. So it's kind of like artificial intelligence is giving you like your base code, and then you're fixing it and adding on top of what it gives you.
So what I want to take away from that conversation, addressing the vibe coding part of it first, is that overall it is a pretty similar message to what I had with Dr. Korrah as well, and that is that while vibe coding is a very powerful tool, those that are equipped with a technical background will utilize it much better, and programming will become a sort of more commoditized and productive medium of producing, larger scale applications in whatever industry or job you're working in. And those that are equipped with technical background, but meaning that comes with higher level skills and knowledge about system design and architectural concepts in larger scale applications that AI just doesn't have. That is the defining factor in what will have us be able to still be valuable as developers over just someone that has zero technical knowledge and lets the AI run its course. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the first question I asked Omar, which was things about over-reliance on AI. And this is something that can bleed into any sort of use of AI, especially LLMs with like ChatGPT, for things like writing, for things like writing emails, and most definitely coding. So this is a interesting topic, and I think that one that should be addressed. So there's still some sort of fine line to discover here, and that is like, how can we use AI to its full capacity but also not essentially lose the cognitive functions that I would argue are pretty valuable in critical thinking skills, in comprehensive reasoning, and overall not feeling like we are outsourcing all of our thinking to the AI. Personally, I want to feel like the solutions that I come up with, or the solutions that I produce, maybe with the help of AI or not, are still largely because I have knowledge and I have the confidence that this knowledge that I gained was actually useful, and I didn't feel like that I had no clue what the AI had given me. I want to feel like that my critical thinking skills are still going to be of use, and I think that overall critical thinking skills are going to be super valuable in the future, and that a lot of people are unfortunately, whether intentionally or not, outsourcing all of their thinking. And this is definitely not just for programming. I think that this is prevalent in writing. This is prevalent in any sort of use of AI that is being used now, where normally we would just, use our brains to think. I think that it's important to upkeep things like reading and writing skills, and things like, going into code once in a while on your own. This is something that is important, that is touched on in an article that was kind of going around the internet for a while in the programming space. It was basically talking about how current junior developers can't program right now. And I think that in a way that it might be true if you're using AI for absolutely everything, as well as the fact that you may not be thinking about what it's producing for you. You may not be trying to reproduce a solution yourself, and you may not be trying to produce a solution on your own first. I think that these sort of things, doing on your own once in a while, are very important to keep, because there's that famous saying that if you don't use it, then you lose it. And I think that that's true definitely for coding skills. Now, of course, there's the argument that whether it's valuable to even keep those skills. However, I think I'm mostly talking about the fact that programming skills definitely tie a lot with architectural skills and system design things, and overall critical thinking that is important for a developer to have. The last thing I'd like to address is, while I've touched on it just a little bit here, it's more just about the concept of 10x developers and what the landscape and workflow of software engineers will look like in the future. With what we talked about thus far, I think we can make an inference that AI is really not going anywhere. We have to find a way for AI to integrate itself into our lives the best way possible, and also conversely for us to be able to integrate ourselves into a society that is fueled by AI. That is, I think there's large importance in mastering fundamental skills, both technically, mathematically, and also cognitively with critical thinking, reading, writing, not outsourcing all of your thinking day-to-day to AI. These are valuable skills that I think will shoot higher even in value the more that AI is being used. And those that are standing out in learning these skills and keeping up these skills are the ones that will stand out. As far as 10x developers, I think currently there's a lot of hype towards how industries are cutting their workforce and how one person can produce the work of 10 people now. I think that overall, in line with the fact that we are in a transition period, new industries will boom, there will be more demand for developers, and we will have a place in the industry. With that being said, it is very true that I think that the role of one developer will definitely be X number of times more productive than the developer 5 years ago. Maybe it's not 10 times, but maybe 5 times, 7 times, who knows. But overall, it doesn't mitigate the fact that fundamental skills and cognitive skills will always be valuable. More importantly, being equipped with a technical background is still going to be super, super important. Not only that, but making sure that we have high fundamental skills and cognitive skills, and making sure that we don't outsource all of our thinking to AI is a very crucial step in this process of making sure that we integrate ourselves into society with AI. We can take this one day at a time, realize that we are in a rough time right now, that hopefully will smoothen out sooner than later. But in the meantime, don't lose hope, prepare yourself well, and happy coding.
If you care about these issues and like what you hear, please share our podcast with your friends, family, and colleagues. Thanks for listening.